Decide immediately. Decide immediately.
I would like a little bit to explain you what we did first during the last 20-25 years, that you see where the status quo, what do we have today, and then I would like to give you a little bit view for the future, which ideas do we have, what could be done. In any case, as I mentioned before, in many cases it's a cooperative question. So leadership through innovation and information is the driver for rural area management. The key question behind is we need better information to make better decisions. This is not an easy task, especially in agriculture, forest, environment, it's a complex task. At the end, you see, this is just an integrative approach. Who is responsible for agroforest environment? We have small, minor farmers, big farmers, the private side. We have the public side, the ministers, the chambers of agriculture, many, many other organizations. As the wind is blowing without the control of any border line, we have also cross-national questions. Because if someone blows something up across the border and the wind blows in the other direction has a problem. So we are linked on the environment all together, if we have national borders or not. National borders does not stop any environmental question. This we have to understand. That means this, I don't follow up all these of them, but you see, there's a lot of different organizations. They have different concepts behind in their mind. They have different tasks. From the point of information, they would need all similar informations that has to come out of a big information database. But today, also in Europe, these many organizations try to build up their own structures. Oh, as I mentioned before, we have in Europe 78 advisory service software groups that develop 78 times the same problem solving for the future. So why do we do this? Why don't we have a better solution? And then we have not only the advisory services or the subsidy management service. No, we have many, many other organizations. They all need a little bit of information. But it's all the nature. It's all the general things. It's the summary of the farmers, the summary of the forest, and the integrative approach between using and between, I come at the end about the new topic, it's called emergency. When I was a small boy, it was called in German language Hausverstand or common sense. Sometimes it got lost. And now we have to change it again, I think. So how did we start? When we started, so maybe a few words about me. So many of you will know it, but not all of them. I'm an educated farmer. I had a farming college, then I was on the university forestry. Then I started IT development, software development. Then I became crazy more. Then I jumped in the plane. I became Apple distributor under Steve Jobs. Then 10 years later, Germans overtook the European model. Fine, Mr. Meyer had to fly with the next plane to Asia. I found Stanchi. I became Asia distributor for Eastern Europe. That brought me to Russia and to many Eastern European countries. And then we started, because in parallel I tried to evaluate ecological and economic problems. As a civil engineer, this is my real education, and as an expert at the court for valuation of damages and valuation of land. And this brought me into interesting projects. 30 years ago, there was an emission from factories, there was a destroying of forests. And the result was Mr. Meyer's expertise in between. And then we won. Not always easy for me. But it was a huge learning process starting that economy and ecology is integrated. One is doing something, the other one has the harm. How do we organize the economy and the ecology question? So and then we started with GIS. We built up our own GIS with a totally different approach than the existing GIS system. Very complex. I said, sorry, when many people want to use a software, it must be easy to use. Otherwise, they will not be able to use it. We started to develop winches. Then we started as one of the first, we had the first GIS with when, where, what. So The GIS means the map, but I need also a time management, and I need also the database. And the database is complex. I am not the expert of Ghana or of Russia or whatever. We need to integrate data, what Mrs. Ritzel told already. Then we built up on top farm management, forest management, and then we have seen already and learned ourselves, okay, that's not the end of the game when we had this. And then my biggest customer till yet was the German machine cooperatives. They have 160,000 members, and they all had different approaches. And sometimes a huge thing of the complexity, because the whole logistics was part of the game. When do I have to be where? But we could solve it with our when, where, what model, rather easy. And then it came to precision farming. We have application for precision farming because a field is not a unique thing. It's different here and different there. And then also we started already, because it was my personal interest, environmental management, land consolidation and risk management. So it was a step-by-step, more or less evaluating and more or less training with customers together. And we had the whole thing as a huge amount of products. We have them here. It was always this when, where, what. So then we had a lot of product developed during the time. This is the amount of product that's here. This is, I don't mention all of them, but this is winches, and you have seen Docoplan from Mrs. Ritzel, and this forest office, and this is logistics, mobile GIS system, that is the system that runs on the tractor, and this is the system for the centralistic organization at home. And then this is the environmental management tools. Then we did for the government also some big project, land consolidation, how to build up cadastre, how to build up land consolidation. And then partly also we learned where's the problem. Because it was not always easy when you try to do something where a government unit said, sorry, this is our job, Mr. Meyer. Why do you do this? It was not always an easy task. And as an Austrian civil engineer, I was always a little bit in the mid-between. Are you a government body? Are you a private? The civil engineer was a 150-year-old model in Austria. You are as an educated guy, you can do the same what a government expert can do, and you can stamp it. But then you must be trusted. This is something funny we had, but then it was changed also by some government organizations. So it was a little bit, I would say, conflict, but not negative. But sure, the government has some other approaches than a private one. But where's the objective midterm? So these I show just some pictures. This is, we started with the vector GIS, then we added on very early the raster. It was not easy to organize maps. There was a map from Carinthia in my region, and the next flight was planned in 7 years. So what to do then when you get the next picture in 7 years? And then this you see also here. Oops. Is there a pointer? Middle one. Where? No pointer. Okay, no pointer. Good. The picture in the middle, you see the three elements again. This is the where, the when, and the what that Mrs. Ritzel have already shown to you. This is a poor vector map. This is also possible. We had giant projects already with them. Then we started with logistics to integrate. We have a mobile GIS system that we started with big mobile systems. Today is on the handy. The next thing, well, to have it everything on the handy. And then we went into precision farming evaluation, but this already 20 years ago, this picture. It's not young. This we had to evaluate, and we have it. But the key question is not the technology. The key question is the integrative of the different user groups under one roof. It's not an easy task. Much more complex than technology. Technology is here since years. So the largest project I told you about the machine cooperatives, and the machine cooperatives is a good cooperative model, how many farmers can work together. I explained this sample. One tractor can manage 500 hectares. The average farm in Austria is 500 hectares. Please ask the farmer, he should buy a 0.05% of a tractor. You only can work with cooperation. Without cooperation, not possible. And the reason why we are a cooperative is the mountains. In the mountains, the pressure to cooperate, because the nature could be very rough. You have to cooperate. Because when you go alone on a mountain, you don't come back, you are disappeared. Nobody finds you again. So that's the learning process we had in the mountains, rather early. This is again. So the logistic picture again, but then we started to integrate with Mr. Pessl. We have one of the best suppliers of weather stations. We integrated the weather stations. It was again a learning process. There's a lot of different suppliers. They have different things, but they should also be integrated. How to integrate them? Or should you tell the farmer he must do the integration himself? Does not work. You need an integrative model and you get the information. That's the key question. So also this weather data must be integrated. And then the picture on the right side top, you see, I think I have it, I hope I have it bigger. This is the integration of ecology. I explain a sample later on how ecology valuation and economy valuation fits together and works together. So then we started with the animals to have abbreviation and to have applications, and you had said from Vlado, they have fantastic things, so it's coming the integration of different elements into one element. Then the animal census project that we negotiate, and I think it is already signed, a very big project in Nigeria signed with them together. So, and then is the stakeholder cooperation model behind. So I went in the last 2-3 years more on the integrative processes of the different structures. Technology is here. We know the technology we can do. But I cannot supply a single farmer anywhere on the globe. He wants, no, it's an integrative question. We have to set up the project together. So this changed the business model. In the last 2 years, it changed totally, and I think we are on the right track. I cannot support a single farmer because I can support the country. Someone has to start, and then we have everything. Then the whole thing is ready, and we can do it. So this is, again, I don't go through this slide, but this shows just, oops, sorry, one back. 12 different structures. In some countries we find 7 structures, in some countries we find 20 structures. These all structures need a little bit of this information what we are able to provide them. Everybody wanted to do it alone. Egoistic tendencies, no cooperation. But sorry, we needed to gather the information. And the key question on this information on the land is who is the owner of the information? Mr. Minister, is this your information about my field? It's my field. But the minister wants to know because he pays subsidies. So, and maybe the neighbor is blowing up with the wind something in. But does he want that I know that he blows with the wind something in? So there's a lot of question where we say we have to find the rules. A lot of logistics question behind, a lot of legal questions behind. Therefore, I was happy that we have also legal situation. A lot of economic questions and ecological questions behind. So a few words, what did we do in the last years? Because I had 2 years, a little bit more than 2 years, this rather heavy accident, but it gave me a better learning process. And then we did with colleagues in Russia, and then I see this is coming from Russian colleagues. You see some pictures on the right side, what we did with IDEMA, identification of images. An image gives you much more than only the image itself. Top, middle, you have the image. You don't see anything, you see nice thing. But down, middle down in second row or on the right side, you find an automatically digitized identification of images. So you can take the information, and I'll show you later bigger pictures, fantastic. So there's a new technology coming and available, and we linked it to Winges now, and we signed all the agreement with IDEMA, with the Russian colleagues, but it was again a cooperation question. They have been excellent in mathematics to get the whole thing. So we can interpret suddenly something that we could not interpret till yet. Giant possibilities for the future, but again, the problem is not the technology. The problem, who is responsible, who will do it, who is allowed to do it, who should do it, who should not do it. That's one of the key questions behind. And on the top left, you see one picture. We tried the test here. It was not easy, it was a learning process, but a rather simple answer. The farmer gets from the food expenses in Europe 8%. 92% is spread for the transport, for the management, for the whatever, for the butcher and for the industry, etc. And the farmer is under pressure. The farmers are global under pressure, but they should manage also the ecology. But the ecology is not valuated. It has no value. In the last 2,000 years, ecology had no value. We were only few people, and the ecology was zero valued. Fine. So let us destroy the value and have a good income on the other side. Not sustainable. We can do it for 20 years, 50 years maybe, but not long. So this is more or less the mathematical technology, and as you know also, I was very much in Russia. I was a young guy and many years, and I know one thing, a learning process of mine, the Russians are good in mathematics. This is something they did better than many others. So the evaluation of these pictures, I show you comparison then. This is from here, from Villach, an ortho image, from the Gerlitzen, the top of these mountains. So you see there is some whatever, some forest is here, and maybe some meadows or what, and some houses, but you don't know what. But result you can have with edema. You get it 5 minutes later and you get it digitized. Then suddenly you know, what do you know? Where is the forest? Where is more Pizza excelsa trees? Where is more book trees? Where is slopes? Where is ways? Where is houses? Where is this, that? Automatically. Fully automatically done. So a total new possibility for us. We can very quick evaluate images. And images we get. In future we get from satellite images, from drones images, etc. This is also south of Villach. This is a region southern part of Villach, on the right side managed by edema. Identification of images. Suddenly we see where is this trees, where is that trees, where is houses, where is rural areas, etc. Fine, but done in a few minutes. When I ask this the minister, he will say, Mr. Meyer, I need 50 people working 6 months, then I have this answer. Wonderful. We do it in 20 seconds. The next thing, also south of Villach. There you see a small field. On the left side is a normal ortho image and the field. On the right side you see the evaluation about the growth capability. So I know how much is growing there. Interesting. So I got a complete new dimension in the picture. I know what is growing there. I evaluate it. This is an ortho image from a mountainous region. You see there's an Alp and there are some trees, but you can go further. You evaluate and you get, I don't get into all details, but you get a lot of information out of the image. Automatically done, please. Okay? Supported. But what is needed, the same as with Mrs. Ritzel, we need expert. They tell us this type of the picture is that. Okay? You need an expert that tells you this is a damage, this is a field that is destroyed, this is a tree that is dying, this is an animal, whatever. The expert has to build up an expert database because the world does not look like in the Alps or in Czech or wherever. Looks different. We need the expert, this club of ossiach. We need the expert that build up this database that are able to do this. This is the same. That's the result. Again, these pictures, and then the result. But then this result can be with other expert models behind. You find another result. Expert were searching something else from the image. Okay, you get a new map with new information. So this type of information was not available before. This is available now. Then we have pictures from Nigeria. I've shown this, the minister in Nigeria. The minister in Nigeria would have, the left picture he could have bought, fine. But the right picture, he had no chance. But we can provide it to him. In 5 minutes, if you have a technology, winches with edema, he can do it. Then he gets the result immediately. And he knows what's really ongoing there. And this is, again, with another database behind, we were searching some different things out of the image. Another database behind, we are searching different things. So the database, experts can define. But please, the experts, again, Club of Ossiach, must be educated, that must be integrating their local know-how. Because this bloody Mr. Meyer is not able to investigate in detail Nigeria or Serbia or whatever. Not possible. But the local expert can do this. The local expert can describe this in detail, build up a database, and then research the whole thing. So this is possible. This is other samples that you see what you can make out of an image much, much better. This again. This shows just where we can get with edema and winches together. Take an image, take a map, evaluate the whole thing, and have a result here. And with this result, we can then go to better information, because without basic information, I cannot make a decision. Maybe I make a wrong decision. Maybe the decision is informed by a marketing guy that says, please, more fertilizer, then it grows better. But maybe it was not the right decision. It was the wrong decision. It was a marketing trained decision. That's a totally different approach. And this, you see, this picture shows you on top is again the plain image. And the Russian mathematics is good. This image number 2. The rest is not Russian. Okay? This is already here also, but not at this mathematically deep question. And I'll show you next possibilities. So we have with this edema a tool that is impressive, that we can evaluate images and get out of the images information that we never got before. Then something, a few words about the business model that we say we are running now. This is one of the first starts now, and from next year on, I think, because I was saying since years, the technology we have, the technology is not the problem. The problem is the cooperation model. How different structures, different organizations, the farmers, the minister, and the many others in between can cooperate. Okay? And the second is then, how can we integrate? Because the better economy does not always mean that the ecology is sustainable. Might be a problem also, and today we have a problem, a global problem that started 50 years ago with local problems when I started with this field. And how different, a funny picture, that is our landscape on the right side, but you see a tree in Africa, I don't know which tree, but it's nice. This tree has more cubic meter than in Austria, 10 hectare. One tree. One tree gives more cubic meter than 1 hectare in Austria or in Czech or whatever has. Fine, wonderful. What the nature has. Which power is behind this nature? Yay. We have to start thinking about this. If we are good or if the nature is good. Maybe we are wrong. Maybe we could learn from the nature much, much more what is possible. And then is a few pictures about the links between, we are working at Risk Office, between ecological problems and economic problems. The right pictures is sent me my colleague from China. There was a wrong management in a Chinese mountain, but we have the same problem in Austria, okay? And then suddenly, after 5 years, the storm is coming, no trees, they cut away all trees, and then you had a problem. No trees is here. So the result of getting an income, an economic result, was to have an ecological disaster. Wonderful. Is this the long-term target we would like to have, or do we have to be clever? Why this thinking is coming? It was funny, he told my colleague, he was university professor for forestry for many, many years, and Fred told me, we have been the onlyest education in Austria, and I don't know why this happened, but I was happy. Our education at this time is changed, is negative, was forestry, avalanche, and torrents. It was integrated. If you manage a forest wrong, then you have a torrent problem. If you manage a forest wrong, then you have an avalanche problem. Wow, such an easy link. So we have to manage our nature so that we don't have a problem after 5 or 10 years. And many problems come not after 5 years. The nature is rather good. Maybe the problem comes after 50 years or after 100 years. We don't know it, but we do it. So this is the thing, we have to start thinking what we do on the economy side might be good for the economy, but might be negative for the ecology. Pop. We have to start thinking about this. But now tools are coming that are measurable. This is some words, just read it. What ecology values are here? And this nice frog that supports a mouse shows a little bit how far a support in the ecology could go. This shows two things. This shows in the US is 7 or 8 years ago, Elinor Ostrom got a high-end prize, Nobel Prize, for cooperating. And then I wrote this prize, and there was the same written that we have been written in our cooperative thing 250 years ago. Just the same, no difference. So somebody is 250 years later coming on the same problem, that the cooperation is a good thing for all of us, when we cooperate on the right manner. But sorry, in the mountains, you see the bottom map is the map of Carinthia, the southern border, in the middle is Villach, and the left side from Villach start the high mountains. They go between 2,000 to 4,000 meters up, very high. And this mountain, the red colored, is cooperatives. So in the tricky region, the cooperatives are managing. Only cooperatives are managing. Because when it becomes tricky, cooperative is the only possibility you survive on the long term. Otherwise, you will not cooperate. You will not survive. You need the cooperation. So this is also in my learning process, and also in the right picture, on the right, sure. When I have 9 or 12 small farms on top of a mountain, I have 9 times the ways and 9 times the cost and 9 times the house is fine. If I cooperate, I have 1 house, 1 way, finished. So we are, and I was myself chief of cooperatives here. Big cooperatives, always 4, 5, 10, 20, 50 farmers together owned something on the tricky regions. In the valley, the farmers were alone, and on top of the mountains, we cooperated. We had to cooperate because the nature was rough. It was a training process from the nature. Then we did the land consolidation. That means we started with winches very early, but that means we did the whole cadastre question. And for me, it's interesting, we were in Austria one of the first countries who built up a cadastre. 70 years long. We worked 70 years till we had this bloody cadastre. Okay? But today I make a cadastre very quick. When we speak in Africa and I say to them, please buy a satellite image, go with a stick there, press a button, you have a GPS coordinate, and then tell the minister, the farmers, if you have the cadastre ready in your region, we can subsidize you a little bit. You believe me, the border will be here in 3 weeks. No doubt. Because they want to have a little bit subsidy and they will be motivated like that. So to build up a cadastre today is an easy task. Technology helps suddenly. It's not that we think different, no, and the African thinks the same than the European. No difference. But the technology now gives a total new possibility. And the old cadastre was also wrong. I know that my cadastre at home, I know this in detail, and we had in Austria problems because the Alpine Meadows cadastre, and I told the ministry 20 years ago, the minister, that the cadastre is wrong. Then they said, no, we are right, Walter, we don't want to change. Boom, then we paid damage results to the European Union, because the whole calculation was wrong. Okay, wonderful. The cadastre was wrong, and if you did with the new technology control the cadastre, the result was a wrong result. Okay? Who was right? Old technology or new one? So this shows the possibility what the ownership of a piece of land, the precise, could support, because I think important for the future is also that we have a responsibility. Who is responsible for something, what he does or what he does not do? The key question, we need responsibilities again. We cannot say, okay, this is the paragraph, is the fault, or this is the fault, and no responsibility. I have an income, wonderful, but responsibility, no, it's not of interest. So we have to come back to the responsibility question. And the precise information helps us to get the real responsibility question. No doubt. It's a must. We have to have it. So then it shows a little bit the calculation, a new business model that I say very simple, the economical benefits, the ecological risk management, etc. That means then suddenly you can calculate, and this I can do, I'll show you maybe later one slide. It shows you a giant possibility what we can do with information, better decisions. But you must understand the whole thing, and please nothing against politicians, but we had now elections, and there was a discussion 1 week before about all the top guys, very complex problem we have, wonderful. Then I have an answer from 2 high-end European Union ministers. They said in a meeting I have been listening, it's a very complex situation. Sorry, if this situation is complex, we have to solve it or we have to close the discussion. We are not responsible anymore. There's only 2 options, and we have a situation that has to be solved, no doubt. But technology can help also. Then already, Sark already mentioned the Fourier project, and he mentioned all the other projects. We are there. That means the European Union projects are interesting because it guides again to cooperation of different brains, because maybe 20 brains together is not 20 multiple 1. No, it's maybe 20 multiple 5. We don't know it in precise. But many people together can bring better results out of the whole thing. So that's again, that's Dias or Copernicus, that's what European Union tries also to do. And this is just some numbers about the valuation of the agro sector in the European Union. I don't want to count all these numbers, but the principle you see that the turnover is not by the farmers. The farmers have the minor turnover, but the biggest workplaces. The farmers work like hell and have no turnover and no income. And they should support the ecology also. Because it's not only the economy that should be supported. there is something wrong, please. Okay? Just someone has to evaluate these numbers. I don't want to count them. You get a picture at the end of the game that we know these numbers, but you start crying when you read this. Somebody gets the income, and the rest has to work. No ecology. And we are speaking now as two European Union projects. Also, the question, I found something, I evaluated. I wouldn't say angry, no, this is fault, but I'm a rather critical guy, and after my accident, I'm still a little bit more critical, maybe. The brain learned something, that is good so. That means European Union is doing subsidies for the hectares. That means a farmer is driven to cut away all flowers, because not hectares where he gets subsidies. All the nice bushes are cut away. Is this good? No, it's not good. It's an ecological damage. On the other side, the farmer gets only income by kilogram or by tons. So he uses fertilizer, because the fertilizer just only costs 500 euro, and the income better is 1,000 euro. Wonderful, I do fertilizing. He did not ask the worm. And then I became very active. The problem that I found out 20 years ago, 30, 35 years ago, was we have two main problems. We have not a climate change problem, no. When you burn coal or when you burn oil, the result is SO2 and or NOx. And both give two giant acids. We won in Austrian High Court results of this. All the damages came not, the climate change doesn't come alone. Where I live, I had 4 times ice over me, 1 kilometer. There was no car driving, there was no industry, and we had a climate change, a massive climate change. Climate change can be, the time is the factor. We have now a climate change that is coming in a giant time. But sorry, we are also a genetic result. And the genetic result gives more or less 800,000 years, divide 25. We have a couple of thousand genetic results in front of us. They had different targets, but it's also a little bit in us. It's not only the brain, it's also the genes. So how do we solve these problems? So important to think about. And then the evaluation, I also don't go, but you can have, I'll show you later one picture. I made ready in the last 1.5 years, during I have been rather tricky and sitting at home, I said, what should I do? And I did a lot. And I don't want to go, but I am ready, or close, let's say 90% ready, 95%. I have a complete 60,000 data sets done, where we have 193 states, all the agriculture, forest, environment during the last 25, 30 years data, how many hectares, all the income in the countries, all the normal country data like debt, etc., and all the damage value that I estimate according to my know-how. Again, the local guy can integrate his local damage data. And then I calculate him for every country on the globe, precise the value of the damage. And in Europe, the numbers is incredible. Oy, oy, oy. And we had in Europe a funny result in 2009 data and responded in 2011 that we had the damage from the brown coal in Europe 163 billions in 1 year. Next year there was no message again coming. It was disappeared. Why? Why this message disappeared? And we made a calculation. I recalculated according to my know-how it was wrong. It was too less. Damage is higher. I will explain a little bit where is the ecological value compared with an economic, because they calculated the economic value, and the same I did 35 years ago alone. So then is also from the, when you see important, there's only one number. There's a lot of shops, but when I was a boy, it was simple. We had 24,000 outlets in Austria, and now we have 6,000 outlets. Okay? And 95%, something like that, have 10 countries, 10 companies of the turnover. So we kicked out any amount of workplaces. Is this good? We will not have these workplaces, fine. Someone managed it better. So it was a focusing on centralized strategies. These numbers we must get aware of. We must see what's ongoing here. Again, I don't go into detail, but I sent you this after the seminar. This is how much does an advisory services with good technology cost, and how much will be the return of invest better when I have, with the support of technology, less costs and higher income. Very simple. This we have to calculate, and I can calculate this, but the local experts can help me with better data because they can measure. And I did a lot of, the forest guys were crazy. We had a lot of forest inventory, forest statistics and things like that. So I cannot measure every tree, then I will never be ready. But I take a statistical sampling. I have only one sample per hectare, or all 100 hectares a sample, then I get plus minus 90%, plus minus 95%. But I can very, very quick get a result of a country. So this was the first. Now is the next one. Simon is helping me. So this was more or less the history. This is more or less everything here, including what coming from the Russian mathematician side, IDEMA, and a lot of good programmers behind. This is here. And now the next one is the future. Yes, something new. I call it in the meantime, okay, it's here, wonderful. Let's call it, how can I analyze the geography, the time, and the data? All three elements I would like to analyze. This gives me suddenly, and this is something, this is not yet ready, but in the brain it is ready. We will have the discussion with the colleagues. They are sitting here from Russia. How can we do this together? And we will do it together, and I know that this, and this is Professor Shurkin, will understand me better than anybody else. So that means when we analyze the whole thing, we have a lot of problems about the time series, what already was mentioned, the analyzing itself, etc. I don't go into all details, but there's a lot of possibilities that we can solve the problem, and the solving is mathematical. Professor Shurkin is mathematically good. I've seen on the formulas what they did. But I give them some interesting things to think about. What is the future? Again, I come back. This is an image, and the left is the GIS, WinGIS with images, etc. But then I had a funny professor, and the learning process came really also after my accident again. Professor Peterlich came after the Second World War. He was good. He looked like an old, really a very old forester coming out of the forest, as a small guy. But I can tell you, look at me. I know how big is the difference from my eye to my thumb. I turn once around in the trees, in the forest, and then I look how high are the trees. And then I tell you they are 364 cubic meter. Okay? Very simple rule. This is something that very later someone else detected in a bigger scale. But this was a general rule we learned, because I know how fat is my thumb, how big is the distance. I know this is a counting factor 4. Pop, I multiplicate Hayes multiple 4, and I know the cubic meter. So it means suddenly I get an information with a simple tool but this was found in the 60s already. When I started, he told us, because normally today you buy a tool, but before the tool was here, he told us the principle behind. This, the sum and the distance, there is nothing else than geometry behind, nothing else. Next thing, oi, 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 now it becomes interesting. But again, the problem, Professor Peterlich came out of the Second World War, that was Mandelbrot, that was a French Jew, that was under pressure under the Second World War. Both were under the pressure in the Second World War, no doubt. And he came after the Second World War with a fantastic idea. He found something simple out, that this Mandelbrot idea, or he called it fractale, is something, you find a fractale on a tree. When you look out here, you find fractale. When you look inside your body with the blood, when you look inside the brain, there's everywhere fractale. That means there's a mathematical model behind all of this in the nature. But at the end, we can, in the future, on the images, we can work it out. But not the fractale alone, and not they alone. No, no, we need something more. And this was Mr. Meyer's idea. He was also under pressure. This was my learning process after the accident. So the accident brought me a huge pressure and a huge learning process. Wonderful. And then came the Russians, the Russian colleague with IDEMA. Fine, this I explained already. This is also something fantastic. But when you start to integrate all this thing, suddenly total new is coming out. You evaluate the picture. And I've seen some US guys with this fractale going out in the forest and measuring 3 days to know how many leaves could bring in so much carbon and buffer the carbon, etc. No, they forgot something. When I see a tree and when I know the cubic meter, I know how many leaves can bring this cubic meter, and I just measure the cubic meter. I mustn't measure all the leaves. But in future, the IT can help me to measure all the leaves. Very easy, because this is big data. So on both sides, we have sometimes something that never before was possible. We could not have done this. It's absolutely impossible to be done. That's again that I've shown already the picture. This is edema. But this is then is Fourier analysis. When you link Fourier analyzing with the whole thing, then you suddenly can, on a time frame, something calculated never could be calculated without big data management in big IT systems. Not possible. I cannot measure the change over time in seconds, hours, or days, or whatever about quadrillion of trees, tree elements on the globe. Not possible. But in future it will be possible. This is something totally new. And this I found from a colleague from Turkey, and that shows again, this he made a mobile thing of Fourier analyzing. Suddenly you can do everything, bring in the mathematical formula. But means I can recalculate the whole thing. When I know the result, then I know what was before. Or when I know what is today, input elements, then I can show the future. This is something never before was possible. So in this, I think we will be ready in 12 months with this, and this is an exciting tool that we can prognose. And why I'm happy that the Russian colleagues are here, because when we want to have historical data, I know this, I was 25 or 30 years ago there. They have historical data of the whole globe. And this is an interesting value, because the future I only can make a prognosis when I know the history. When I don't know the history, I cannot say what will be in the future. So the existing archives in Russia will be a high value for the future to prognosis the future, no doubt. So this is more or less that what I told in a few words, but just here down you see the data element. I tried to have an average calculation, but you go into quadrillion of data. So this is really big data. When they say big data in a factory, forget it, it's not big data. This is big data. When you go into the nature and want to evaluate the nature on a global scale, then you have big data that is incredible. So, now the next one. So this is a little bit future vision, but this will come. The whole basic fundament is done. The future fundament is by brain here, and we will be able to implement it in a rather short time. There are some things, it's already also under processing, and there will be interesting things. Then Mr. Meyer became again a little bit angry, due to the accident maybe, but it's very simple. When we have, also is laughing, how can I get healthy and sustainable food? We know today, since few years, that not all food that we eat is healthy. But we have built up a system that supports the human in hospitals. Fine. When you have a problem, go in the hospital 3 days. The general. So you eat something and do something that is not good for your body, but at the end go in the hospital. Is this clever, or could we change things? Could we do it much, much better? And on the other side, I have already told you that 8% of the food expenses is coming to the farmer, 92% on the others. But we have new technology. In future, I'm sure we have at first to control the quality of food, but the quality of food starts on the production, not later on. In the industry, it's too late. When you put a lot of negative things on top of the food, you won't have an excellent result. You can do whatever you like. It's not a good result. So we have to evaluate the quality of the food, and in the future, I've shown you what the future will bring. We can do this. And when you have this possibility, you can suddenly link the farmers to the consumers. And that could go so far. A colleague of mine is doing some snacks. And I think I see much, much more. But at the end of the day, you can link the farmers with a new type of food chain, more or less directly, that they have a high quality of the food. But this must be, because people are not only nice and only good. No, you have to control it also. If the production was okay. A simple example. Sugar is more poisoned as heroin French people found it out 2 years ago. But with sugar, you have something like heroin. So when you put sugar on the meat, the people will like this meat. Wonderful. More sugar on the meat, wonderful. A little bit more cost, more meat sales. But a problem in the brain starts also, that they know since 2 years. We get a problem in the brain. So is it good to use the sugar on the meat? No, it's not good. It's long-term not good. So we have to start to understand about this integration of factors. We forgot this, we didn't use this. But we have to start to understand, and we're learning this step by step. But suddenly this shows a colleague of mine is doing this, and he has a licensing, he's just setting up, left down, you see, he can do this on every piece of land, and then he's selling with quality product. He needs 5 different products of farmers, and then he can build up, and he has a good income. So this is for 100,000 millions of single users a possibility to do quality products. But again, the quality production must be under processing and must be controlled. Otherwise, I get cheated. We get cheated today, very much on the food side. We have to control the food much, much better, because only to sell is too less, because some values we don't have under control. Sorry, the German thing, and maybe there is something at the end. Yes, this is what I mentioned already, on which location we are here. And this is funny for me. And also, the accident brought me very close to thinking. Where am I living? Why happened the accident? What happened there? What was the history? I have a very funny history. One side comes from Italy, Venezia. Another side comes from Slovenia. Another side comes from Bavaria and came to Germany. So there's a mixture between Romanic, Germanic, and Slavic tradition in between. Wonderful. But I got on the other side also an influence from the political side. I had from very far left till very far right everything in the family. Everybody explained me how good. I said, you are all nice guys, but please don't explain this to me. The same I had in religious. Father was Protestant, mother was Catholic, but they married Protestant, and then the Catholic priest came to mother and said, you should do it different. It's not nice what you did. And my mother came home, this bloody priest, what he told me, it's also not okay. So you started, the thinking process started. That it's an integrative approach again. It's not a question if you are this or this or this. It's a question, how can we cooperate? And please, I don't want to blame anybody. But if our God, if it's here or not, if it is Protestant or Catholic or Mufti or whatever, do you think he said only we are here and the others not? No, for sure not. For sure not. This I tell everybody who comes. So we cannot support. And the interesting for this Alplog is now that we are on this location where everything meets here. We are 100 kilometers far away from Trieste. There we have a good cooperation with them. And we have, you see, this is more or less the traffic on the worldwide side. A big part of the traffic is linked to Villach. Big part is linked to Villach. And why this is, that is the whole traffic in total, it's not so much, but when you go into detail, for sure, when you look here, it lands in the north of Adriatic Sea. Then you are middle in Europe. What did we do? We drove up till Hamburg, and then we drive back 1,000 kilometers to Villach. Okay, 1,000 kilometers more with the ship upwards, and then 1,000 kilometers with the trucks down. Is it crazy, or is it good, or is it not good? So there's a lot of optimization in logistics. And also when you link to, there's a Baltic corridor under implementation. There's the idea that the Russian they have a little bit wider trains than we have, so everything has to be exchanged. No. They found new technologies, and there's in Vienna is planned a total new corridor. That means we suddenly can, with the same train, that moving a little bit the axis, smaller or wider, and we drive till Beijing. Fine. Same train. Pop, goes through. Comes in Trieste, goes through till Beijing. And we heard today the importance of the Silk Road. Fine. When we have a Silk Road, and we have in Villach 2 main nodes. 4 highways in 4 different directions. And 4 railway stations, 4 railways in 4 different directions. Interesting. There's a node point. There's an integrative node point. And nothing against, don't want the Caesar again, that we have our Kaiser Franz Josef. But I have a funny story about this too. But In Trieste, they made something interesting. 500 years ago. Not stupid. It linked some countries together. And this was a good concept, and I think we should go. But today we have to cooperate with the Italians. Fine, why should we not cooperate? And I don't believe that the Italians are bad because Kaiser Nero burned Rome. Okay, so, but this we should forget. We should not talk again this. So you see where we are, how easy we can link Asiatic and also African countries via Europe together. It's a rather simple tool. And this is more or less what is here in Villach already. And I have the luck on the left top, this is my farm. In the meantime, a part of it is government also, it was already government, but we can do a fantastic thing there. And there's a plan that we do something here, and we could import and export a lot of possibilities with a good logistics center. And I had 6 weeks ago, sorry, I had the financing chief of the Silk Road with me, Chinese. He understood that here I can go to Serbia, get trees here, to Bosnia, get trees here, to Austria, get trees here, and collect them and export. A lot of possibilities. So there's a giant possibility on such an axis to build up. This we should think about. I'm not against economy. Important that we have economy. But it should not destroy the ecology. We have to bring this under one roof, and it's possible. So this is Alplug North, is the name of it. And with this, also Africa is linked. Because in the Adriatic Sea, I just swim once across the Mediterranean, and I'm in North Africa. Very, very easy to manage the whole thing. So this, you see, we had some big project and development plans done in the last years. They're ready, and there's a huge interest to do something. And for me, it's important that we can exchange agricultural or forest products also, in both directions. So which industry is for sure? Logistics is one main industry, but the logistics must be controlled, please, with emissions. A funny story. When I was at the forest of Schwarzenberg when I finished studies. It's 25,000 hectares. It was good. It was there up and down, and I managed they had a small sawmill with 10,000. At this time it was big. Today it is small. The biggest one have 1 million or 1.2 million already cubic meter per year management. And there was a driver, a truck driver. And then I drank a beer at lunchtime, and then I sat together and said, what are you doing? I drive 2 kilometers, and then I take some other logs and drive it down. Where? Back where I was coming from. Fine. So, and what do you do down there? Yeah, again, drive 5 kilometers and take again logs, and then I come back to Schwarzenberg sawmill. Wonderful. The driver took 250 kilometers in between, up and down, instead of 5 kilometers here and 5 kilometers there. We did not optimize. He was not interested to optimize. Who paid the whole thing? The emission came out. The sawmill at home got less money. The guy at the Schwarzenberg sawmill had to pay more because of the huge transport cost. So it was his interest. But it was not an integrative tool. And it was not an integrative thing. And now I'm back at Professor Hermann. Okay? We need an ecology balance and an economy balance. We have to calculate both things. Otherwise we are wrong. Because one is wonderful for him, for the other one it was not good. Because he pays too much at the end. So this is okay, this is Alplug North. And then a funny story to explain you once more that I would like that you understand ecology and economy on one simple example. 30 years ago I calculated because of smoke coming out, the forest was growing less. 30% less grows, about 3,000 hectares of forest for 30 years. Boop, it was a lot of money, plus interest rate, etc. At this time, I wanted to calculate the ecology value because I have understood it already. No, please don't. No, please don't. Maybe we get the money from the economy, but not the ecology tasking. The thinking process was not here. Good, but what happened in reality? When a smoke is coming in a tree, the needles go down. When they have too much sulfur in, the needles fall down. When a tree has too less needles, he is producing less, he is intaking less carbon, CO2, he is producing less log, less wood. Fine. This is the calculation for the economy. What's about the ecology? When you have less needles, water is falling more down, you have a flood. Oh, Interesting. Nobody calculated this yet. Where is the flood maybe coming from? When you have less needles and the water is falling down, less water is evaporating back into the sky. So the air has less humidity. With less humidity, you have less bees and less other insects. And when you have less insects, then you have less birds. And when you have less birds, you have less eating of seeds and less distributing of seeds. And you have less natural growth. This is ecological values, please. Nobody calculated this still yet. This happened. Okay, we had flood. But it was good for some guys. When you have a flood and when the flood destroys some houses, oh, for the local construction company, good business, wonderful. For the bank, wonderful, because everybody had to go to the bank and say, please, I need money, I have to repair my house. Good business for the bank. So we have, and this is again economy ecology balancing. We have to calculate the whole thing. Please, not only one thing and the rest forget in the calculation. We forgot it. In the last 100 years, we forgot this calculation, and I think it is wrong, and we should not do this like that. And this is my last words. We have to understand that only with cooperation we can really solve big tasks, and only with ecology and economy under one umbrella we can calculate correct. Otherwise, the whole calculation is wrong. It's short term, works for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but then the whole thing has a problem. That's it. And this was the reason why I invited. I thank very much for coming. Taking part here, and I think we need this cooperation. Without this cooperation, we cannot solve the problem. And you have learned, I think, everybody a little bit, that there are different tasks, different, very important things here in this room. We have to bring them under one roof. Everybody alone will not solve it. Very simple, not possible, because then we start. Because we tried to do this already, and when our former Minister Fischer said something is important, what I told him 25 years ago, I have to start thinking. Okay, I told there's a problem 25 years ago, but now he got it. Wonderful. Congratulations. But it needed 25 years. Must it need 25 years? Can't we do some things in 2 years or 3 years? That's it. Thank you very much for coming, and I hope everything was okay, what you have listened here. And I think I wish that we can build up a very, very good cooperation with people that are here and with organizations. That's it.
Decide immediately. Decide immediately.